channel. Hey, you know what time it is, No Press fam. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Beatdown, the segment and channel where two worlds collide. I am your host, Class. And as always, guys, if you guys enjoy our content, you know what you guys can do. You can share, you can like, or you can subscribe to our channel. When you guys subscribe to our channel, you know what you do. You guys are building our empire and allowing us to provide you guys with even much more greater content for you guys to enjoy. On today's episode, entering the Beatdown arena, I figured we'd do a buddy cop dynamic duo fight for this particular episode. So I will start things off by representing and talking about the brief origin story of Lethal Weapon's own Riggs, Detective Riggs, and Detective Murtaugh. An experienced officer, Murtaugh, is paired up with an unstable one, Riggs, after the loss of his wife. Riggs kept putting himself in Def's way every chance he got, including in his work. Murtaugh was assigned by his captain to babysit Riggs as his new partner from ending his life. And at first, Murtaugh didn't want to take on the responsibility since he was reaching ages where he's no longer a young man anymore. But once the two started working a case and getting to know each other, the two became each other's problems as neither one wanted to give up this new dynamic duo partnership together, becoming Lethal Weapons. Alright, now let's get into the bath, shall we? Alright, first meet, Murtaugh thought Riggs was a criminal with a gun, and when he tried to take it off his hands, Murtaugh got introduced to the floor and Riggs still had his piece. Riggs took out 3 guys by himself, even had a gun pointed to his neck and still took the guy out. Cuffed himself to a victim and jumped off the roof with them. Safely, they survived. Murtaugh perfect precision shot a man who was armed right in the leg without taking him out officially, like KO, like for good. Shooting range, both showed they can shoot their targets dead on, but Riggs can shoot longer distance. Riggs and Murtaugh can tolerate incredible torture. Murtaugh took a beating and got salt rubbed into his wounds, and Riggs was electrocuted with water and some jumper cables and a battery and a sponge. Both took the pain, and Riggs got them both out of that jam. Riggs took a mercenary on his own in a pouring water along with muddy floors. Lethal Weapon 2. Riggs stopped an assassination on Leo by getting him and the assassin to fall off a 7-story building and land into a hotel pool, not his finest hour. Riggs took down a man who was escaping in a moving tow truck. Riggs and Murtaugh survived a toilet bomb together. Riggs was in a room full of diplomatic immune men and still punched 2 of them out and ruined their fish tank. Murtaugh took out a home invader using a staple gun between the eyes and another one with straight shots to the chest. Riggs used a pickup truck to destroy a house built out of the edge of a cliff, while Murtaugh took out 2 guys with his pistol to save Leo. The two took down a boat full of armed men on their own. Riggs took out their best hitman by stabbing him first and then crushing him with a shipping container. Riggs got shot in the back, and Murtaugh took out the guy who did it, even with his diplomatic immunity. Lethal Weapon 3. Caught in the street gunfight. Murtaugh took one of them out, but didn't realize he knew the teen until it was too late. Together worked on defusing a bomb, but didn't succeed, but they did manage to save a cat in that situation. Riggs, mistaken as a set of a movie as a real life situation, and jumped into action, taking down the armed man by leaping onto him from behind without him seeing him coming. A bank robbery happening in a car on a highway, and Riggs got into the moving bank truck and took out 2 men in the process, even took one through the front truck window. Riggs took out the main bad guy in a barely constructed house going into flames. Murtaugh took out a few men in the process as well. In poetic fashion, Riggs shot the main guy with his own cop killer gun and then had the Boulder truck drive him into the burning building without any means of escape. Lethal Weapon 4. Riggs fought a guy in a moving truck on a freeway with a room attached to the back of the truck. The two managed to take two men out during their speed chase. Riggs survived getting his car pushed onto a train track and took the people attempting out in the process. In Murtaugh's home, Riggs and Murtaugh fought some trained Asian assassins and managed to take all of them down except Jet Li's character. Riggs and Murtaugh take on Jet Li's character and beat him with their 2-on-1. Riggs and Murtaugh fought a man dressed in an iron suit with a heavy machine gun and had a flame torch. Took him out while Murtaugh created the distraction by being in his underwear flapping his arms like a chicken. Riggs got a clear shot the guy's propane tank and shot that to put him down for good. Trapped in a burning house, they managed to escape. On a fishing trip, the boys found themselves discovering illegal activities on a ship and stopped the ship and bad guys in the process. A gunfight with some Asian gangsters at a warehouse, and the two managed to take a few of them down in the process. Alright, so let's talk about the end game. How Riggs and Murtaugh would defeat Carter and Lee. So, let's talk about the fact one of Riggs' great qualities. Not only is he a great martial artist, because obviously Lee has that covered as well, but he's also great with marksmanship as far as long distance shots, as he demonstrated during his shooting range, during the time he was a sniper at a desert. He has proven time and time again to be very, very skillful in that essence, and he's also very former ex-military, so it does come in handy in this situation. So distance-wise, if this became a fight, I do believe that if Riggs wanted to, he could create the distance, and Murtaugh would create the close range. Considering Murtaugh is pretty good close up, but Riggs is obviously better. But Riggs still could help him with a sniper shot to take out Lee and Carter in the process. Murtaugh might have some difficulty, but he's also pretty good at being the diversion or the bait in situations, as you could tell during certain movies where he has to be the distraction while Riggs gets his clear shot or gets an opportunity to get his shot in. So yeah, we could say that Murtaugh's the distraction, and Riggs could create the distant range shot to take both of them out in this fight if they wanted to go through strategy and just kind of take them out without needing to go through a whole hassle of fighting them. Another thing is, one of the two things that their strong suits are is speed chases. I mean, during a highway chase, they're pretty good under intense situations, Riggs and Murtaugh, compared to Lee and Carter. There hasn't been moments where they've had to do a lot of speed chasing in cars compared to Riggs and Murtaugh. Riggs and Murtaugh have gotten themselves familiar on the road to take on intense pressures while they're moving. So any kind of moving vehicle or something, I do believe it favors Riggs more, it favors Murtaugh more in this situation. Now, another thing is to add on to this is, let's say Riggs and Murtaugh managed to gun down Carter. Now, Carter's impressive, but Carter is not the best cop in the world. He talks a lot. He's got a big mouth. He might have done some good stuff, but without Lee, if it was just Carter on his own, he would be in big trouble against characters. So Lee's always there, but let's say hypothetically Lee's indisposed, right, for a moment. He's knocked out or a little bit unconscious for a moment or dazed out. This would be the perfect opportunity for Riggs and Murtaugh to take on Carter. If they gun down Carter, it's game over for Riggs and Carter in this situation. Sorry, Lee and Carter in this situation, because they're not going to be able to take down Riggs and Murtaugh with a one-man show. Considering the fact that Murtaugh and Riggs actually took on Jet Li's character on their own, and they beat the crap out of him. Jet Li's character. Now, Lee, the character from Rush Hour, now that character, however, Inspector Lee's impressive, but could he take on both Riggs and Murtaugh? No, I don't think so. So if they take out Carter, Lee's in trouble on a 2-on-1 situation against them. No way is he going to beat him without Carter. So, but obviously Carter needs to survive, and I don't think he could survive against Murtaugh and Riggs, considering Murtaugh and Riggs have kind of pretty much shown that they're very skillful in their own right. All right, and the final point I will make between Riggs and Murtaugh is their experience and their pain tolerance. You have to give those things into credit, because Riggs has got experience in the military. Lee's impressive in his own right, but Carter doesn't have a lot, like an impressive track record on himself. He hasn't taken down a big drug ring or anything like that. He got into the FBI because they kind of made him believe it was like this top thing when it was just babysitting someone. So Carter wasn't really given the highest ranks. He's still a regular cop. He's not really done so many impressive things. But when you talk about Riggs and Murtaugh, both of them together have done some pretty impressive things and have survived a lot of intense situations. So their experience alone might help them to go against Lee and Carter, considering Lee and Carter are kind of young still in this situation. If experience-wise, I feel like Riggs and Murtaugh are much older than Lee and Carter. Lee and Carter are still young during their time, in their prime. Riggs and Murtaugh are the same too, but Murtaugh is a little bit older, a little bit wiser. And the last point I'll make is the pain tolerance thing. A fight between them, fist to fist. Riggs against Lee, Carter against Murtaugh. No matter how it goes, if it's a switch away around, obviously it wouldn't favor Murtaugh to go against Lee. But let's say Lee against Riggs, Murtaugh against Carter. If they were to get into a fist fight, no guns, all just fist mano a mano, who's going to win that fight? Now, Carter has done some pretty impressive fighting moments, but everything's kind of a fluke with Carter. You know, no offense, he's kind of a joke when it comes to dumb luck in fights. He's not always shown that he's very skillful, but Lee's always got his back. But with Riggs, so does Riggs. Riggs has got Murtaugh's back, and Riggs is an impressive fighter. He took out some pretty impressive mercenaries. He's also fought some Asian gangsters himself. He took on Jet Li's character too. So maybe he didn't defeat him on his own, but he still showed that he could take him on. So the two have a pain tolerance from the torture, which means if they were to have to outlast Lee and Carter, I do believe they're going to outlast Lee and Carter in this fight. And this gives Detective Riggs and Detective Murtaugh the victory. Alright, now on this side, I will be representing and talking about the brief origin story of Detective Carter and Inspector Lee. Detective Lee from China gets a call from his boss / dear friend about his daughter being kidnapped in America. So he comes down to help with the investigation. Problem is, he has to be babysitted by another detective from the country who doesn't really work with partners, but is tricked into the assignment. The two decide separately to work on the case, and then eventually together, ultimately stopping the bad guys and saving the little girl, becoming the two unlikeliest of friends into an amazing cop dynamic duo team. Alright, so let's get into the BAF. If you're not already aware, these are the characters from the Rush Hour franchise. So let's talk about these feats, shall we? The Chinese restaurant. Lee and Carter fought several armed Asian men there, and they actually did handle themselves pretty well on that. Carter took down an arms dealer possessing a C4 by blowing up the car holding it. The first day with each other, Lee attempted to get rid of Carter half the time in the most extreme measures. Lee alone took on a pool lounge full of brothers on his own, okay? Lee also embarrassed the FBI agency by getting into the house before they could form a plan. Carter showed some skills himself, learning Lee's trick to snatch a gun off someone's hand. He accomplished it by snatching it off a bad guy's hand and then knocking him out. The event, Carter and Lee took on a swarm of Asian gangsters. Rush Hour 2, and they won, by the way. And they got the other bad guy by, I think, blowing him up. Rush Hour 2, fight on a boat with a few men. They won that fight. Lee climbs the side of the building in China using bamboo for its structure and fighting off a bunch of Asian gangsters along with keeping his balance from falling off the building. The spa place. Carter and Lee fought off a bunch of Asian thugs in robes. Just wearing robes, that's got to be impressive. You know, Carter held his own in that fight. Those are a lot of impressive fighters that he took on by himself, even without Lee being there to help him on that situation. Lee didn't take them all by himself, is what I'm saying. The casino. Carter fights a more skillful female Asian mercenary with purely dumb luck, and Lee took down the man who caused his father's death. Rush Hour 3. Waiting on the master. The two fought a giant Asian karate fighter. Lee fights an Asian female assassin alone while Carter assumes it's some kinky stuff. Fought off some motorcycle assassins. Lee fought his baddie of a brother in that situation, or in that movie, and he won that fight at the end. And they managed to escape by jumping off the Eiffel Tower and using a parachute to do it, I believe. It was a pretty crazy ending. Alright, let's get into the end game. How Detective Lee and Detective Carter would defeat Detective Riggs and Detective Murtaugh. But I'm just going to say Lee and Carter the whole time. Anyways, let's talk about the fact that Lee and Carter are both pretty damn well and working together. Like, they're not just working together like back to back or shooting. They actually work together like fighting skills. They can switch each other off. They can move to different directions. They know where to go when it comes to which direction when they want to fight opponents. So I do want to say that Lee and Carter work well together when it comes to actual tag team, moves. So I'll just saying that as a side note. Another thing is that Carter, maybe he's not the most skillful fighter, but he is the wild card in this situation. Considering, let's make the argument, Murtaugh is not about, he's kind of an old dog, no new tricks type of situation person. Carter, however, that's not the case. Carter proved in the first movie he was willing to learn some new skill, and he learned it and accomplished it and managed to use it to his advantage. For example, taking the gun off somebody's hand. He learned that from Lee. So if he was able to learn that from Lee, that means he can learn new dog, new trick situation compared to Murtaugh, which is old dog, no trick situation. So why would I mention this? Because that skill also does come in handy. Let's say in a fight where there's no more guns, ammo's ran out, and these guys or Carter and Lee are out of a weapon, and Riggs and Murtaugh are right close to each other. I do believe Murtaugh might not see it coming, because I do believe Carter would be fast enough to snatch that gun off his hand, and if he does, he could take the gun off his hand, shoot Murtaugh, and then shoot Riggs. Now, there's a chance Riggs might be able to react quick enough, but then you also have Lee there. Now, Lee is going to be able to shot block. I want to say, you know what I mean by shot block? I mean, like, as Riggs is trying to attempt to get that fast draw to take out Carter after he took out Murtaugh, there's a chance Lee could actually just grab the gun, lift it up in the air, or kick it off of Riggs' hands before, and then Carter could get his shot in. As he already took out Murtaugh, he'll take out Riggs, and Riggs would be disarmed before he could actually react in time to actually execute Carter for vengeance. Let's also talk about the fact that Lee is a little more flexible compared to Riggs and Murtaugh. And why would I even mention this in the fight? Well, let's say Lee is being chased by Riggs, and they're in situations where it's pretty tight or very narrow or very hard to kind of maneuver around for an average person, but not for Lee. If Lee were to go into a goose chase with Riggs, and he manages to get him into a tight, cramped situation where he's stuck somewhere, like maybe a small, well, or maybe it's like little cramped up spot that's between two buildings, or maybe, I'm just throwing these random hypothetical, I'm sure there's better scenarios where he can get stuck. Maybe he can trap him inside some kind of jail vault, or slip through something a lot faster, or maybe get him caught where Riggs thinks he can actually chase after him and get him stuck in some little big huge hole where he can't get out, like a pit. There's a lot of ways where Lee's just much more flexible, much more capable of leaping and doing a lot of more impressive feats compared to Riggs. And if Riggs gets stuck, that means Murtaugh is in trouble, because after that it's just Murtaugh against Carter and Lee, and I don't think Murtaugh is going to manage to survive against Carter and Lee with a gun or a beating. After Murtaugh gets taken out, then it's just Riggs against Carter and Lee. Yeah, I don't think Riggs is tough, but Carter and Lee, weapons or fighting against Riggs, I don't think Riggs is going to stand a chance against the both of them. At some point, he might be taken out in that sort of way. Now, another thing is that I'm going to give it to Carter and Lee when it comes to speed. The Riggs and Murtaugh are tough. They can take some pretty impressive beatings. But when it comes to speed, Lee and Carter have shown throughout the time that they've dodged certain situations or reacted in certain ways quickly when it came to intense moments. And because of their speed, it does come in handy against fighters who, even though they're tough, but can't really get that swing in. If they can't get that swing in, if you get more punches in, that's going to disorient them, and eventually they'll be able to take advantage and put you down for the count compared to your one good punch if you can't nail it. Alright, so a few of my final points. So Carter and Lee, and the reason why I've never mentioned that, they might have a fair chance at winning in certain elements of guns, maybe distance or surprise, only just that one trick that Carter can do by taking the gun off someone's hand, is because Riggs and Murtaugh have shown time and time that their shooting is something you can't mess with. Where Lee and Carter are usually more reliant on fighting skills, they're not reliant on guns. So fighting wise, they're pretty damn impressive, and together they're pretty damn impressive. And I mention that because in a fight with these two together, working together against Riggs and Murtaugh, they might be able to overcome the two of them because their fighting technique together working, and kind of like they can almost like dance together in a way. where they're kind of in sync, it gives them an advantage against two characters who might work well together, but if it might work in intense situations of helping each other out, but don't really think of a team strategy. They're more just impulse decision compared to Lee and Carter, where they kind of already come up with ideas on how to fight with each other, working together. And yes, we have to talk about the background between Riggs and Lee, because both have an incredible back record. So you can't dismiss any of them in this fight. Both of them are the key factor of winning this fight. But the one thing that will always be the key ingredient is Carter and Murtaugh, because that one extra hand is going to help end and finish everything in this fight. Between Carter and Murtaugh in a fist fight, I think Murtaugh might beat Carter, because obviously Murtaugh is a little bit bigger, a little tough. He might be older, but he shows he's got a lot. He's still got a lot of fight in him. So Carter will have to rely on his gun to take out Murtaugh. Once he takes out Murtaugh, 2-on-1 situation can happen here as well. Carter and Lee against Riggs again. It just doesn't seem to go well for Riggs. And even so, again, I will say, Riggs and Murtaugh together, either way, even in the team, I do believe Carter and Lee are just more in sync when it comes to fighting together in tag team kind of form, compared to Riggs and Murtaugh, when one might be eliminated quickly and then the other one has to be taken on, the two of them. And with that overwhelmation, I do believe Lee and Carter, Detective Lee and Detective Carter, would win this one. As always, no press fam, it's not up to me, it's up to you guys. So if you liked either one of my arguments, you know what you can do. You can hashtag Lee and Carter, or you can hashtag Riggs and Murtaugh. And as always, no press fam, we really appreciate you guys keeping it. Ready? 400 subs. Peace. Much love, guys.